Hello people, I am Panda Annie from the Oceania server, and recently in patch 6.9, Annie got some changes as well as a whole bunch of other mages. But today I'm going to be talking about the changes themselves, the direction I see her going with these changes, the new build paths and playstyles for her existing matchups, and a whole bunch more. My goal in this video is to try to explain and help the people who play a bunch or even a little Annie what they need to know about these changes, to explaining what you need to watch out for when versing Annie with these new changes. So, if you're interested in my input, sit back and relax. First, let's start with Annie's changes. Nothing was changed to her champion stats or anything like that. All of the changes within this patch were to her abilities. For her passive, it now shows under Annie's health bar, because I guess left clicking was a little hard, but hey, you know, it looks cool, so I guess that's a win, right? But for the passive itself, nothing was changed. As of her Q, nothing was changed at all, it's the exact same. For her W changes though, they did some bug fixes. One of the things they fixed was her W hitbox to match more like her indicator. What I mean by that is, first off, the 560 to 625 range is not a 65 increase to her W. It did get a slight increase, but that's more around 20 to 35. Here is W's indicator. Now before this patch, the hitbox would look more like this. As you can see, it is more squared on the top of the cone shape, with a little increase in the center. Also, at the start of the cone, you can see the hitbox starts at the end of her hand animation for her W, rather than being centered on her. So what did they fix? Well, most of the 560 to 625 range increase was actually making the W look more like the indicator itself. Even though this wasn't said in the patch notes, I can say personally that it feels a little less poopy. But that may be because they fixed another bug. Before I talk about it more, I would like to tell you something I like to call stun frame and appear frame. What are they? Well, it's very simple. Stun frame is the frame where the enemy gets stunned, and appear frame's the frame the ability appears. I'm not going to go too much into detail about it at the moment, but I may make a video in the future. Feel free to leave some feedback about that. But what they fixed in this patch was made her W's stun frame match more like her appear frame. From what I know, they didn't fix this with Tibbers though. So what does this mean? Well, W feels a little less clunky to play with, and for people who are versing Annie, stun frame shouldn't screw you over when you try to flash a W stun. Next, we have her E changes, which are only really some stat changes. First, the duration of Molten Shield's aura around Annie and Tibbers has been reduced from 5 seconds to 2.5 seconds. When up, the Thornmail-like effect's damage has been increased by quite a lot, gaining 15 more base damage per level up, as well as a very small amount of AP scaling increase on it. Now you gotta remember, since the duration has been cut in half, you're gonna need to use your E a little more wisely. I don't think these 3 stat changes are going to do much for Annie herself, but are going to be more effective when enemies try to kill Tibbers. Now for some of the bigger changes for her E, instead of giving base AR and MR, it now gives damage reduction going up to 40% max level. What's the difference? Well, damage reduction does not get affected by how much penetration the attacker has. So I can see this being the difference for life or death situations a lot more. Here is an example clip of how much damage it actually eats up. Now the last thing on this list is they removed Tibbers' speed up after using E, which is kinda poopy, but the reason for this remove is because of her R changes. So Tibbers got a lot done with him, and in my opinion this is for the best as well. But I'll talk about playstyles after this, but first, stat changes. First up, Tibbers' damage and AP ratios have been lowered on his placement and his Tibbers burn. Although this might seem a lot, this actually isn't going to change his damage outcome by that much. To compensate, they made a new passive which I'll talk about soon. They also lowered his auto attack damage by a bit, but it now has an AP ratio as well as getting a little increase in range. Next up, they made Tibbers a little smarter to move with. For example, something that used to happen with Tibbers is if you targeted an enemy and they walked into a bush, instead of chasing or standing still, Tibbers would walk back to Annie, which got quite annoying. Something new they added was now, if you target Annie, Tibbers will actually follow Annie. Now note, they didn't get rid of the old-fashioned way of making Tibbers follow you, which is commanding Tibbers to walk out of range, and then once he teleports, he will just automatically follow you. They didn't get rid of that. That's still in the game. They also made it so now Tibbers regens when out of combat for a bit. And now finally Tibbers' new passive, Enrage. When enraged, Tibbers gets 275% attack speed and 100 bonus movement speed. Now what causes Tibbers to enrage? There's 3 things. 1, Tibbers being placed. 2, stunning a champion, and 3, when Annie dies. Now something they added for Tibbers is when old Annie died, Tibbers used to die too, but Riot have changed that, so now instead of dying as well, he gets his enraged passive as well as getting 50% of his missing HP and not applying his teleport range. Think of it how Shaco's clone doesn't die when he does, but with Sion's death passive. Tibbers will try to focus the person who killed you, but if they are more than 1200 range, he will just seek the lowest HP person. 1200 range, by the way, is around the same distance as Zerath's Q. First I'm going to talk about Tibbers and a new combo I've thought about, and hopefully that utilizes his passive Enrage a little more. Now Tibbers is going to be more important than ever. In my opinion, what made a good Annie player and a great Annie player was how well they utilized Tibbers burn and autos. This applies more than ever now. A combo I have thought of, which to be honest I'm still kind of testing, my goal is to try and use his Enrage passive and utilize it as much as possible. The combo is having 2 stacks on Pyromania and then using Tibbers W for some quick bursts, commanding Tibbers to auto to use that Enrage auto attacks for a bit, and then after that throwing a Q to reset his Enrage passive. Now note, his Enrage passive doesn't actually stack, but it does reset after a new thing happens, if that be stunning an enemy or if you die. Next I'm going to be talking about Annie's E changes. In my opinion, these new changes are really nice. Grabbing a level 5 might be better in some situations. For example, here is my maxing order I do usually. Usually I get Molten Shield at around level 7 or even higher some cases. But now since it's actually quite good, depending on some situations I might even get at level 5. Those situations being if I'm versing a LeBlanc, Fizz, Zed, Talon, all of them kind of champions. The other situation being if I was forced to back before level 6 and they managed to stay in lane, I might also get it level 5 there because I know they're going to hit 6 before me. Now when versing Annie, I've discovered people don't really know how strong Tibbers' Avenge period really is. If you're killing Annie, be warned, Tibbers is coming for your ass. Now what you could do to avoid this situation is either kill Tibbers before killing Annie, or if you're a jungler, what you could do is smite Tibbers and try to kill him before he does too much damage. As for builds or items for Annie, if you're wondering if anything was changed, everything you used to build on Annie should work just as fine as it used to then. Now if you're wondering, should I rush Chrono Belt on Annie? And the answer to that is probably not actually. The item doesn't give enough base AP for the price it's cost. Does it mean it's a bad item on Annie though? Not at all, in fact it's a very good item on Annie, it's just don't get it as a rush. It'll be more effective to get it as a 3rd or 4th item rather than a 1st or 2nd. Another thing is, does Tibbers Burn still work? Now if you don't know what Tibbers Burn build, it's just Liandry's and Rylai's. Now what I can say is it's still not a bad combo, but the damage was lowered on Tibbers' aura and his placement, which does make it less effective, but it's not a bad choice. Now I haven't been able to muck around with too many builds with new Annie, but I have been trying out healthy Annie. Pretty much I don't die, but I still do shit tons of damage. What have I been building? Well, 1st and 2nd item I'll get ROA and Rylai's, but it can be swapped with any of the 4 items above. After that I would get Prono Belt, and for 4th item I would get Morello, but can also be swapped with some pen items depending on the situation. My last item would be Zhonya's, but if you didn't have Rylai's or Morello you could swap them out with that. Get boots whenever you can. If you don't have full cooldown reduction, get Liandry's boots. If you do have full cooldown reduction, get any of the other 3. And that's about it actually. I've pretty much said everything you need to know about the new changes. Hopefully you learned something from watching this video and you're a bit more prepared to play new Annie on the Rift. I would like to say a special thanks to Mr. Fuwas here for helping me get a lot of these example clips. I'll link his channel plus a playlist of all the videos I am in with him in the description below. Thanks for watching and I'll catch you guys later.